Chosen one, stop scrolling for a moment. You have heard this before. That soft whisper that once brushed past your soul, it's returning now. Louder, heavier, undeniable. This is the second time heaven has brought this message to your attention. The first was warning. This one is confirmation. God does not repeat himself without purpose. When his voice circles back, it means the assignment remains unfinished and your obedience is still required. There was a time when you felt that nudge in your spirit. You knew it was him. You felt the pull, the stirring, the sudden conviction. Yet you reasoned it away. You told yourself you would act when the time was right, but time has circled back. The same word, the same instruction, the same call stands before you again because God, in his mercy, refused to let you miss it. When heaven repeats, it's not because you failed, it's because you are favored. He could have moved on to another, but he didn't. He waited. He watched. He sent reminders through signs, through dreams, through moments that seemed too specific to be random. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. The word of the Lord came again not to a prophet of the past, but to you, now, in this moment. It is written in the book of Jonah, chapter 3, verse 1. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message I give you. That verse isn't about Jonah alone, it's about you. The second time, the repeated call. The mercy that gives you another chance to do what you once delayed. You've been running in circles, wondering why certain doors haven't opened, why peace has felt distant. The truth is, God has been waiting for you to complete what he already told you to do. Chosen one, this is not a new instruction. This is a reminder. Heaven does not waste words. God is not introducing a new mission. He is reviving the old one you buried beneath distraction and doubt. The first word was your test. This second word is your redemption. Listen, every time you ignored that pull, heaven noticed. Every moment you silenced that conviction, grace recorded it not to condemn you, but to keep you accountable. The longer you wait, the louder the echo becomes. That's why this message found you today. It's not because the algorithm chose it, it's because God orchestrated it. You've been asking for signs, but signs are useless if you keep ignoring the message they confirm. The voice that speaks to you now is the same voice that whispered before. He is saying, you still have time, but not forever. Look around, everything has been shifting lately. People fading away, situations breaking down, doors closing for no reason. That's not chaos, it's coordination. Heaven is rearranging your surroundings to make room for your obedience. You cannot stay where you were when God is calling you higher. Don't you feel it, the same stirring in your chest that once made you cry for no reason? That silent awe that makes you know God is near. That's the sound of his mercy knocking again. This is not an emotional moment, it's a divine appointment. You were never meant to blend in. You are not common. You carry something holy, something the world needs, and that's why the message keeps finding you. God is repeating himself because your silence cannot rewrite his will. You can't escape your calling, and you can't outrun his mercy. The only thing more powerful than your hesitation is his patience. So now, you stand again at the threshold of destiny. The first time you heard the call, you hesitated. This time, you answer, you step forward, you obey. The voice that spoke before is speaking again, not because he has changed his mind, but because he still believes in you. That is grace beyond measure. If your spirit is stirring right now, that is your confirmation. And don't delay again. Act on it. Speak it out loud. Let heaven hear you. And when you're ready, seal this moment like, share, and subscribe so that every message sent from heaven finds you in season. Then comment the number 777 below as your prophetic sign, the number of divine completion and spiritual alignment. Let heaven know this time you heard, and you're ready to obey. You have reached the moment where hesitation ends and destiny begins. The same God who spoke once and speaks again is watching your response. Do not scroll away. Stand firm. Listen deeply. And let this second call transform your spirit into pure obedience. Heaven has repeated itself for your sake. The sound you hear is not coincidence, it is purpose. Type 777 below and step into alignment. Your delay ends tonight. Your awakening begins now. This is the moment heaven marks you as one who finally answered. You remember the first time he spoke? It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable, a quiet stirring, a gentle press upon your heart, a whisper that carried both peace and fire. It came during a season when you were searching for clarity, yet you didn't realize clarity had already found you. You heard it, but you didn't hold it. You felt it, but you didn't follow it. And though time has passed, that same voice has not gone silent. The message you missed has come again, stronger, deeper, and far more personal. This is the moment heaven calls your attention back to what you overlooked. The missed signal is not condemnation. It is mercy in motion. You thought you had dismissed it, but divine words do not fade. They linger in the spirit, waiting for the right atmosphere to take root. You can ignore them for a time, but never erase them. Every divine instruction is alive, and what is living cannot die, it only waits for resurrection. The Spirit of God spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. That is where you stand now at the crossroads, once again. The first time, you looked but didn't move. The second time, heaven expects more than curiosity, it expects obedience. The missed signal was a test of attention, but this moment is a test of response. God's love has brought you back to the same place, not to shame you, but to show you how much He values your calling. You see, chosen one, divine instruction never expires, it evolves. What God spoke once still carries power now, because His word is eternal. You may have forgotten, but the word never did. It carried your name through seasons of silence, through distractions, through storms of doubt, until finally, your spirit became still enough to hear it again. Maybe the first message asked you to release something, someone, perhaps, or a habit that dulled your fire. Maybe it asked you to step into something uncertain, something beyond your comfort. Whatever it was, you hesitated because you feared loss. But now, after seeing what delay costs, you understand that obedience is never loss, it is alignment. This return, this repetition, is heaven's reminder that your destiny remains untouched. God never changes His mind about those He calls. The delay did not disqualify you, it developed you. Every moment of silence was shaping your hearing, refining your discernment. The voice that was once faint now sounds unmistakably clear because you are finally still enough to listen. You might think of the opportunities that slipped away, the prayers that went unanswered, the doors that closed before you could walk through. But heaven wants you to understand none of it was wasted. Every closed door was a redirection back to this moment. The silence was strategy. The waiting was mercy. The repetition is redemption. Sometimes, the loudest message is the one you didn't respond to. God's voice is not just a sound, it is a sequence, a rhythm that moves with your journey. He spoke once to awaken you, and now He speaks again to align you. The missed signal has become a sacred echo, calling you to remember what your spirit once knew. You were never meant to walk away from your calling. The beauty of this second word is that it does not carry accusation, it carries restoration. Heaven does not repeat itself in anger, but in invitation. God is saying, I am giving you another chance to listen differently, and that difference changes everything. The first message required faith. This one requires trust. Faith believes God can speak. Trust believes you can respond. That's why this season feels heavier. It's not about hearing anymore. It's about obeying. The world around you may not understand why you are being pulled back to something you thought was over. They might say, you've already tried that, or you've moved on. But divine assignments don't expire when people lose interest. They remain alive until they are fulfilled. You are standing once again at the crossroads between delay and destiny. The voice that calls you now is not reminding you of failure, it's inviting you into fulfillment. The missed signal has become your map. So take this moment as holy ground. What was once a whisper has become a command wrapped in grace. The same God who spoke before is speaking again, not to repeat himself, but to restore what was left undone. Heaven never wastes a repeated word. Every echo carries purpose. Every delay hides design. The same voice that spoke once is now demanding your full attention, not for punishment, but for preparation. This is the hour when remembrance becomes movement. You are hearing it again because you are ready now. The silence has done its work, shaping your spirit for obedience. What you missed before now returns as mercy. The crossroads await your answer step where you once hesitated. You now understand that God does not repeat himself out of impatience. He repeats himself out of mercy. This second message is not a new revelation. It is the same word brought back with greater urgency. Heaven does not forget what it speaks. And when you finally hear it again, it's because the time for understanding has come. You may have wondered, why now? Why again? Because God knows repetition births revelation. He is not trying to remind you of failure, but to reawaken faith. When the same instruction returns, it means heaven has refused to close the chapter you tried to skip. What you thought was over is only unfinished. There's a rhythm in divine timing. First comes the whisper, then comes the echo. The whisper tests your sensitivity, the echo tests your surrender. The first time you hear God's voice, it calls you. The second time, it confirms you. That's the stage you are in right now, confirmation, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of John. Chapter 10, verse 27. My sheep hear my voice, I know them, and they follow me. You've always been able to sense his voice, even when you tried to drown it out. You recognize his tone in unexpected places, in conversations that pierce deeper than they should, in songs that feel like prophecy, in random phrases that strike your spirit like lightning. That's how heaven speaks when it refuses to give up on you. The repeated word comes to remind you of identity. You are not ordinary, you are chosen. The reason the message keeps finding you is because your name is written inside it. This word does not belong to everyone, it belongs to you. God's voice chases those he has marked. Every repeated call is an act of divine pursuit. Even when you delayed, heaven didn't delete your assignment. It waited, it circled, it returned. Because what's attached to your name cannot be reassigned until you reject it completely, and you haven't. Deep down, your spirit still wants what God wants. That's why you're still here reading these words, feeling that familiar stirring. Don't be afraid of the repetition. It's not a sign of disapproval. It's proof of divine consistency. Heaven will keep circling your name until obedience becomes natural. You can't outdistance his grace, and you can't silence his patience. The fact that you're being reminded again means heaven still sees potential in you. Repetition is mercy disguised as persistence. It's God saying, I'm still here. I haven't changed my mind about you. And that's why your heart trembles now, not in fear, but in recognition. You've heard this before, but this time it feels different because you are different. Look closely at your life right now, the patterns, the sudden signs, the inner unrest. These are not coincidences. They are signals from the divine, aligning you back to purpose. God is whispering the same truth until it breaks through the walls of distraction you built. The message you ignored before is knocking again. The first time it asked you softly. This time, it demands response. Heaven has waited long enough. It's time to rise from hesitation into obedience. Maybe this second word is your invitation to rebuild something you abandoned, to forgive what still hurts, to say yes where fear once said no. Whatever it is, heaven is not reminding you for nothing. He's calling you into motion. Chosen one. Don't let the repetition frustrate you, let it form you. Each echo shapes the warrior within. Each reminder chisels away doubt. When God speaks twice, it's because He's about to move once. Now, let your heart speak back. Break the silence that delay created. Type I'm listening below, not as routine, but as prophecy. When you write it, heaven takes notice. It's not about public confession, it's about spiritual agreement. You are declaring to the universe that you're ready to hear, ready to follow, ready to complete what was once left undone. Your comment is not an algorithmic response, it's an altar in the digital realm. It marks this moment in time as the one where obedience begins again. This is your echo of surrender. Heaven has spoken twice. Now, you answer once with a simple act of faith. When you type, I'm listening, you are not just responding, you are returning. Those two words become your agreement with heaven, your declaration that silence will no longer rule your spirit. It's the moment your heart leans forward and God leans closer. When you say, I'm listening, the noise of the world loses its power. It is an act of surrender wrapped in simplicity. Heaven measures not your eloquence, but your willingness to hear. Every letter becomes a spark that reignites divine conversation. When you write, I'm listening, you confirm that the second call was not wasted. You are no longer the one who ignores. You are the one who answers. This is where obedience begins and destiny shifts, one phrase carrying the weight of divine agreement. You can feel the weight of what silence costs. Every delay, every hesitation, every whispered not yet built invisible walls between you and the promise that was once so near. You didn't mean to resist. You were waiting to feel ready. But readiness was never the condition, obedience was. The longer you waited, the heavier the call became, because destiny delayed is destiny deferred. There are seasons when disobedience doesn't look like rebellion, it looks like caution. It looks like praying about something you already know you're supposed to do. It looks like pretending to wait for confirmation when God has already spoken. You were not ignoring Him on purpose. You were negotiating with what He asked for. But heaven doesn't bargain. His word stands firm whether you act or not. Now, as you look back, you see the quiet consequences. The doors that stayed closed, the peace that slipped away, the restlessness that grew louder each day. These were not punishments, they were signals. God wasn't angry, He was waiting. You were being taught the sacred cost of hesitation. Because every act of delay carries a spiritual price: missed timing, delayed growth, muted blessings. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 32. Now then, my children, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. That verse isn't merely instruction, it's invitation. The word keep means more than obey, it means guard, treasure, preserve. You were never just called to hear God's voice, you were called to value it, to treat His words not as suggestions but as sacred assignments. Disobedience is not always defiance, sometimes it's distraction. You were pulled in so many directions that the voice of God became background noise in your life. You felt Him, but you didn't follow. You heard Him, but you didn't move. And yet, He never left. Even in your hesitation, His patience stayed near. The weight you carry now, the inner tension, the awareness that something must change is the evidence that heaven hasn't given up on you. The conviction you feel is not condemnation, it's confirmation. God's voice has not grown faint. Your ears are simply being tuned again. You've learned that obedience is rarely convenient. It will almost always cost you something: comfort, control, or the approval of others. But the cost of obedience is never as great as the cost of delay. The moment you postpone what heaven has spoken, your peace begins to erode. The unspoken truth of disobedience is that it doesn't destroy your calling, it just slows its unfolding. The promise remains, but it waits in suspension until you align again. Heaven does not revoke purpose, it waits for permission. In your quiet moments, you've replayed the times you said later. You've felt the ache of missed timing. You've watched others move forward while you stood still. That ache is not envy. It's evidence of calling. You're not behind, you're being reawakened. Every delay that once frustrated you is now being redeemed as understanding. You needed to know how it felt to wait so that you'd never take obedience lightly again. The weight of disobedience is not meant to break you, it's meant to bend you back toward God. That heaviness pressing on your chest is not punishment, it's gravity pulling you home. Heaven disciplines not to destroy, but to direct. You were created for alignment. Every fiber of your spirit was designed to recognize His voice and respond without resistance. That's why disobedience feels like inner conflict. It's your spirit grieving what your flesh delays. When you ignore the divine, your peace fades because your nature rebels against disconnection. Even now, grace is working in your favor. The same voice that once instructed you is the same voice calling you back, not to start over, but to continue what you paused. This is not about shame, it's about return. The delay did not cancel the mission, it only changed the timeline. God has not withdrawn His word from you, He's amplifying it. Each repetition adds depth, authority, and clarity. The voice that once sounded soft now carries a weight you cannot ignore. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. Heaven's patience has a limit only in the sense that mercy demands movement. The season of reconsideration is closing. You've been given enough reminders to know this isn't coincidence, it's divine pursuit. The weight you feel now is sacred, it's the moment before breakthrough. There's no going back to spiritual sleep. Once you've recognized the cost of disobedience, ignorance becomes impossible. You are accountable now not to guilt, but to grace. You've seen how silence feels, and you know you never want to live without His voice again. So, let this realization sink deep. Every delayed step can be redeemed by a single act of obedience. The weight that once pressed you down can become the force that propels you forward. The heaviness you feel is not the end, it's the turning point. There is still mercy in the air. Even after delay, even after hesitation, heaven continues to whisper your name. You are standing in a sacred space between correction and calling, between what you almost lost and what you still can claim. The voice that once warned is now offering restoration. You've begun to realize that mercy isn't weak, it's fierce. It doesn't chase because it has to, it chases because it loves too deeply to stop. The fact that you're hearing this message again means grace is still working for you. Heaven has not turned its back, it has turned its face toward you. Heaven speaks clearly through the writings of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. That's what God is doing for you right now, making a way where you saw none. You thought the silence meant the end, but it was the soil preparing for a new beginning. You thought the wilderness was punishment, but it was protection. God hid you there, not to break you, but to build you quietly, away from noise, away from distraction, so that when He spoke again, your heart would know exactly who it was. Mercy has hands gentle, patient, and firm. It picks up what delay dropped. It restores what fear fractured. And when it comes again, it never comes empty. Every repeated message carries a gift, another chance to respond with full heart. Chosen one, this is that moment. A new thing is springing up. It doesn't look like what you expected because divine growth never does. God is building something beneath the surface of your ordinary life. Something that will one day bloom through every scar, every tear, every moment you thought was wasted. You are not forgotten. You are being rewritten. Mercy still speaks because heaven still believes in you. That's the kind of love no failure can erase. Even now, the Spirit of God surrounds you, quiet but strong, whispering, I'm not done with you yet, and as this word finds you, let it not just touch your ears, but reach your heart. If it brings you peace, if it stirs something deep within, then let it plant gratitude in you. Gratitude is not shown in grand gestures, it is shown in how you value the voice that brought you life. When you feel that quiet pull to like this message, imagine it as lighting a candle, a small flame in the night that tells heaven, I am still here, still believing. If your heart leads you to share, think of it as releasing a dove into the sky, carrying hope into someone else's storm. You never know whose darkness will be pierced because you decided to release light. And if your spirit whispers to subscribe, let it be like building a small altar where heaven and earth meet again so that when the next message arrives, you are already standing where grace can find you. For those who feel moved deeper, for those who whisper, I want this light to keep burning, you may donate. Do it not as an obligation, but as planting a seed in the unseen garden of God's mercy. Every offering, no matter how small, becomes like a drop of oil poured into the lamp that helps this message reach others still wandering in silence. If you cannot give, know this: your attention, your prayer, your listening heart are already precious offerings. Every time you pause here, heaven notices. The truth is you are part of something living. Every flame, every dove, every seed, each act of kindness helps mercy keep flowing. God's word travels through people who choose to carry it, not because they must, but because they want to. So let gratitude guide your hands and peace guide your heart. Like share, subscribe, or donate only if it resonates within you. Each act is a bridge, not a burden, an invitation, not a demand. Mercy still flows where generosity breathes. Let your act, however small, become another stream in that river. Mercy moves like a river. It doesn't ask permission to flow. It simply finds every open heart and fills it. When you respond, even silently, you become part of that river, carrying grace farther than you'll ever see, touching souls you'll never meet. Your act, whether a word, a share, or a quiet prayer, becomes an echo of heaven's compassion. God measures your intent, not your ability. Each small spark of kindness keeps the flame alive in a world desperate for warmth and light. So let gratitude be your language and love your rhythm. The work continues through hearts like yours, steady, humble, willing. You are the evidence that mercy still breathes through humanity, one gentle act at a time. You can feel it, time has shifted. There is a sense that something unseen is counting down, not in fear, but in sacred urgency. You are beginning to realize that your days are not random. They are numbered by purpose. Heaven has a calendar, and your name is written across this very date. The first call was awakening. The second was alignment. But this moment is acceleration. What was once slow now moves with divine speed. What felt delayed is suddenly alive again. You can sense it in your spirit, like a river that was once dammed, now released. Everything inside you is telling you this is the time. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Hebrews, chapter 3, verse 15. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. That word today carries weight. It means there's a window that won't stay open forever. God is speaking now, not to frighten you, but to focus you. The message has returned because heaven's clock has struck a sacred hour. You can't live endlessly in preparation. There comes a moment when you must step forward, even if you don't see the entire path. Chosen one. You've been sensing the divine tension between waiting and walking. It's like standing at the edge of dawn, the world still dark, yet the light already rising. The hesitation you feel isn't doubt anymore. It's the awareness that obedience will cost comfort. But deep down, you also know the cost of not moving is far greater. You have asked for signs and heaven has answered. Maybe through patterns you can't explain, recurring numbers, words that repeat, dreams that return with strange precision. These are not coincidences, they are timestamps of the divine, reminding you that God's patience has purpose but not permanence. This is your reminder that your time is not infinite. Your story is being written in divine ink, and every act of obedience becomes a sentence that shapes eternity. You stand now where destiny meets decision. Heaven's whisper is clear. Move now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now. Because when God repeats himself, it means movement is overdue. He's not waiting for your perfection, he's waiting for your participation. Every moment you delay, something holy pauses with you, and heaven is ready to move again. The sacred scroll of Amos, chapter 3, verse 7, declares, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets." You are hearing this because revelation precedes release. God is revealing the shift before it happens, so that when it arrives, you'll recognize it as fulfillment, not coincidence. The number that will mark this moment for you is 55, a prophetic symbol of divine change, grace multiplied, and the completion of preparation. When you type it, you are not playing with numbers. You are aligning with movement. You are saying, "I recognize the shift, and I choose to move with heaven." When you comment 555, you are stepping into agreement with what God has already begun. It's not superstition, it's symbolism. Numbers are heaven's poetry, the way God stamps eternal meaning onto moments that seem ordinary. This number carries a rhythm of grace: 15 for the grace that found you, another for the grace that healed you, and the third for the grace that is about to send you forth. Chosen one. You have walked through seasons where nothing made sense. You've been refined in silence, stretched in uncertainty, and shaped by waiting. But all of that was preparation for this shift. God doesn't repeat himself unless he's about to reveal himself. The signs around you are aligning, divine timing meeting divine purpose. You don't need to force the door, it's already unlocking. You just need to walk through. Heaven is counting on your yes. The kingdom's timeline depends on your obedience because your story is not isolated, it's connected. Someone else's breakthrough may be waiting on your courage to move. When you respond this time, Don't do it out of fear of missing out, do it out of gratitude for being chosen again. The same God who gave you time before is giving you grace now. Look around your life. Even the stillness has started to hum with divine rhythm. What once felt delayed now feels pregnant with purpose. This is the moment before release. So take a breath and recognize what is happening. You are standing inside God's timing. Comment 555 below as your declaration that you are ready for divine change. When you do, you are not just writing a number, you are agreeing with heaven's calendar. You are saying, I'm done waiting for perfect conditions. I'm ready to move with grace. The shift has already begun. Don't let it pass you by. When you write 555, it becomes more than a number, it becomes a doorway. Each digit declares transformation, multiplied grace, and divine motion. You are saying to heaven, I choose to move with you, and this is not repetition, it's resurrection through obedience and timing. The moment you start to notice patterns, you begin to understand that heaven speaks in more ways than words. God does not always announce himself through thunder or prophecy. Sometimes he hides his confirmations in the rhythm of your daily life. A conversation that stirs something deep, a dream that repeats itself. A stranger's phrase that feels too pointed to be random. All of these are threads in the same divine tapestry. They are hidden confirmations, the quiet signatures of a God who is far too precise to rely on coincidence. You have been surrounded by signs for longer than you realize. Some you brushed off as chance, others you noticed but doubted. Yet the truth remains, nothing in the life of the chosen is random. Every detail is coordination, every repetition is reminder, every moment is a message disguised as ordinary. The voice of wisdom cries out in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 19. Those whom I love I rebuke and discipline, so be earnest and repent. This is what hidden confirmation often looks like, not punishment, but correction, not wrath, but redirection. God doesn't expose your mistakes to shame you, he reveals them so you can return. Every correction is a coded message that says, I love you too much to let you drift away. Think of the times you felt something was off, but couldn't explain it. The sudden restlessness that kept you from going somewhere you planned to go. The moment of hesitation that stopped you from saying what you almost said. Those weren't accidents. That was heaven adjusting your path, steering you away from unnecessary pain. Hidden confirmations rarely come with explanations, they come with impressions. The Spirit often speaks through awareness before articulation. You feel it before you understand it. That's why spiritual sensitivity matters. It's the difference between wandering and walking in wisdom. God doesn't just want you to hear him, he wants you to recognize him, even when he whispers through subtlety. You've probably prayed for clarity many times, but clarity doesn't always come in new words. It often comes through old ones, repeated until revelation forms. The sign you are waiting for might already be around you, repeating itself in different forms until your spirit finally recognizes the pattern. Some confirmations are gentle, like a feather landing on still water. Others are fierce, like lightning breaking a silent sky. Either way, they all carry one truth. Heaven is making sure you don't miss the moment. This is what divine repetition means. It's God circling back until you finally see. His patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. Every time you ignore a small nudge, he raises the volume slightly, not to overwhelm you, but to ensure you won't walk away uninformed. Chosen one, you've been hearing and seeing more than you've acknowledged. That sudden thought that keeps returning. That inner prompting you can't shake. That word that keeps finding you no matter where you turn. It's not obsession. It's confirmation. God is trying to show you what's been hidden in plain sight. He often confirms through consistency. What keeps showing up in different forms carries divine weight. When you see the same theme repeating in sermons, songs, and so on, or even through people who don't know each other, that's not accident. That's alignment. Heaven is orchestrating reminders so you cannot deny His voice. Confirmation also comes through peace. The world confuses peace with comfort, but divine peace can feel like fire. It burns away distraction, leaving only clarity. You might still be nervous, still uncertain, but underneath it all, you know, that's still steady knowing that's God. The more you learn to notice, the more you realize how detailed He is. He hides confirmation in timing, in conversations, in closed doors, and unexpected delays. Even unanswered prayers can be confirmations, because silence itself can say not yet. Hidden confirmation is heaven's way of protecting purpose. You don't always get the explanation you crave, but you always get the evidence you need. The whisper, the nudge, the pattern, these are divine fingerprints proving that your journey is being guided, even when it feels uncertain. And when you finally see it, gratitude replaces fear. You stop doubting and start discerning. You stop chasing signs and start walking by revelation. The signs were never meant to replace faith. They were meant to strengthen it. You are not crazy for noticing what others overlook. You are not imagining it when something inside you says, "Pay attention." You are simply becoming aware of a language heaven has been speaking all along. So listen differently now, the next time something repeats. Pause and ask, "Lord, what are you showing me through this?" You will be amazed at how fast peace follows awareness. The hidden confirmations are not random, they are breadcrumbs leading you back to purpose. Every sign, every whisper, every divine echo is heaven's way of saying, "I haven't left you. I've been guiding you all along." Inside you, something begins to stir. It's not just emotion, it's recognition. Your spirit senses that you are standing in the tension between what was and what will be. The hidden confirmations have done their work, they've awakened a movement within. What you feel now is not confusion, it's calling. The stirring inside your chest is the sound of destiny waking up after a long sleep. You've tried to silence it before. You distracted yourself with work, noise, and comfort, convincing your heart that maybe the desire to move forward would fade. But the more you tried to bury it, the louder it became. You were never meant to silence what heaven has placed inside you. What you carry is too sacred to die in stillness. The prophet Ezekiel once wrote, chapter 36, verse 26, "I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh." That is what this stirring truly is, a spiritual transplant. The old heart, the one hardened by disappointment and delay, is being replaced by one that feels again, that believes again, that dares again. God isn't trying to make you comfortable. He's trying to make you alive. You are beginning to sense that the stillness you once mistook for peace was really dormancy. The difference between peace and dormancy is purpose. Peace moves with grace. Dormancy stays out of fear. The stirring inside you is heaven breaking the shell of safety so that purpose can breathe again. This is why your emotions have been unpredictable lately, why one moment you feel gratitude and the next unrest. You are shedding the skin of an old season. The inner stirring is the holy discomfort that always comes before transformation. You are not falling apart. You are being reshaped from within. Do you feel that unease, that sacred restlessness? It is not anxiety, it is anticipation. The spirit inside you is refusing to stay where you've been. It's pressing you toward the next chapter, one you can't yet see, but one that's already written in heaven's book about you. This stirring is also revelation. It's heaven's reminder that obedience was never meant to be mechanical, it's relational. God doesn't just want your compliance, He wants your communion. The stirring invites you to listen differently, to trade passive belief for living awareness. When your heart begins to beat in rhythm with heaven's timing, you will recognize it through longing. Longing for more than comfort, more than safety, more than survival. You will begin to crave authenticity, to live fully awake, not half alive. That's what happens when the new spirit starts to breathe inside you. Your appetite changes. You lose interest in conversations that lead nowhere. You no longer chase what once impressed you. You begin to hunger for what heals, for what's real, for what bears eternal weight. This stirring is proof that heaven hasn't given up on you. God would not awaken something He didn't plan to fulfill. The very fact that you feel again means grace is still moving. You're not being haunted by dreams of purpose, you're being summoned by them. Don't fight this feeling. Don't try to rationalize it away. The stirring is not a sign that you've lost direction, it's a signal that you've been found again. Every time God breathes, something in you responds. That is what this is, divine breath meeting human surrender. You may not know what to do yet, but that's all right. The stirring is not asking for action, it's asking for attention. Awareness always comes before instruction. Listen long enough, and clarity will follow. It is like standing near the ocean before sunrise. The waves whisper first, the light comes later. The sound tells you the dawn is near. That's what the stirring does. It announces change before you see it. Your spirit recognizes what your mind cannot yet define. The voice of God is awakening memory, the memory of why you were born, why you've endured, why you were chosen. You're beginning to remember your original rhythm. Every shaking, every tear, every disappointment has been leading you here to this moment of awakening. The stirring inside is not random, it's resurrection. The same God who spoke into dust and called forth life is now speaking into your heart, calling forth purpose. You are not the same as you were before this began. Something inside you has shifted. You've outgrown the places where you used to hide. The walls that once protected you now feel too tight, too small for who you're becoming. The stirring will not let you settle anymore. It's heaven's gentle rebellion against your comfort zone. Every time you try to go back to what feels familiar, your spirit whispers. You don't belong there anymore. So let the stirring do its work. Let it move you. Let it change your pace, your prayers, your posture. It is preparing you for something greater, something that cannot be carried with yesterday's mindset. The stirring within you is the beginning of divine movement around you. What God awakens inside always manifests outside. This is how transformation begins, not with thunder, but with a tremor. There comes a moment when heaven can no longer whisper. When grace, though still gentle, grows firm enough to shake what slumbers. That moment is now. You are hearing this not because you were forgotten, but because you are being reawakened. The stirring has done its work, and now the spiritual alarm sounds. This is not a coincidence, it is divine interruption. The stillness around you isn't empty, it's charged with purpose. You can almost feel the air shifting, like the pause before thunder, the breath before breakthrough. Heaven is leaning close, waiting for your response. The voice that once called softly now carries weight, not anger, but urgency. As the Gospel of Matthew records, chapter 11, verse 15, "Whoever has ears, let them hear." This is heaven's way of saying you've heard enough to act. You've seen enough to believe. No, Dumar. The spiritual alarm doesn't sound to scare you, it sounds to save you. It is God's way of ensuring you don't sleep through your season. You've ignored the signs before, but this time, you can't. The moments that used to feel ordinary now carry divine electricity. Conversations, songs, even silence seem to speak. That's how God works. He transforms the familiar into prophecy. The alarm doesn't come from outside you anymore, it rings within. Chosen one, you've felt the unease building. The inner tension, the sudden awareness, the quiet voice that interrupts your thoughts. This is heaven's wake-up call. It's not just telling you to listen, it's telling you to decide. You can't stand halfway between obedience and hesitation anymore. When God rings the alarm twice, it means mercy is making one final appeal. The first call asked for awareness, the second calls for action. And every second you delay, something precious waits for you to respond. You may have noticed how your usual routines no longer satisfy you. The things that once brought joy now feel hollow. That's not depression, it's divine discontent. Heaven is detoxing your spirit, pulling you away from what numbs so that you can feel what heals. This is what the alarm does, it shakes you awake before opportunity closes. It's not the sound of punishment. It's the sound of promise saying, I'm still waiting. You stand on holy ground every time conviction touches your heart. Conviction is not condemnation, it's proof that the Spirit still speaks to you. If heaven were silent, you'd be lost. But the alarm means you are still chosen, so listen, not just with ears, but with readiness. The spiritual alarm is not noise, it's navigation, it's God saying, this is the turn, take it now. What will you do with this sound? You can't unhear it. It echoes until you act. You can either roll over and ignore it, or rise and respond. But one choice leads back to stillness. The other leads into destiny. This message is not meant to scare you, it's meant to steady you. The world grows louder by the day, but heaven's voice is clear. The alarm is not chaos, it's clarity. And when you recognize it, when you finally understand that this message has been sounding over your life for years, you will realize it wasn't delay, it was protection. God kept you in place until your heart was ready to respond to the call. Now the alarm is sounding again, and this time, you know better than to sleep through it. The next move belongs to you. Heaven has already spoken. The question is whether you will echo it. Pause here. Listen to your heartbeat. That rhythm, that pulse, it's heaven's metronome reminding you that time is sacred. If your spirit knows this message is for you, write these words in the comments as your response to the divine alarm, I'm awake. When you type it, you are not just declaring awareness, you are prophesying readiness. You are telling heaven, the delay is over. I'm no longer sleeping through my season. This is the moment the alarm becomes alignment. When you type, I'm awake, you're not just writing a phrase, you're sounding a trumpet in the unseen. Those words break the silence that delay built. They tell heaven you have heard, you have risen, and you are ready to respond with action, not hesitation. I'm awake becomes a covenant between your spirit and divine timing. It marks the moment your awareness transforms into alignment. It's not noise, it's navigation. Heaven records your declaration, writing beside your name. This one listens now. The atmosphere around you shifts because awakening always attracts movement. Every time you whisper or write, I'm awake, you reaffirm that sleep no longer defines you. Your spirit begins to stand tall again. Your heart steadies. Your purpose breathes. What once echoed as warning now resounds as worship. You have answered heaven's call. And in that single act, you've turned awakening into destiny fulfilled. Each time you repeat, I'm awake, light floods the places that once hid your doubt. The words become armor, wrapping your spirit in awareness. Heaven smiles, for the chosen one has finally heard, risen, and stepped fully into divine rhythm. Every awakening brings a decision. You can either rise with what you've just seen, or close your eyes again and pretend you didn't. The spiritual alarm that shook your heart was never meant to leave you trembling, it was meant to help you walk. Once the eyes of the soul open, they crave motion. You are now standing at the threshold of renewal, one hand holding the lessons of yesterday, the other reaching toward tomorrow. God does not rush you, but He does invite you. His voice is calm, like a hand extended across the water. He knows the waves have been high, that your faith has felt tired, yet He still believes in your yes. This section is the still breath between awakening and action, the moment you realize that moving forward is a gift, not a burden. The word of truth declares in Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." That means nothing you've surrendered is wasted. The work that started in hiddenness is still alive. The voice that woke you is also the hand that will guide you. You don't need to have everything figured out, you only need to keep your heart open. And as you continue walking this path, let gratitude rise within you. Gratitude is the language that keeps miracles near. It turns ordinary days into sacred ground, turns reflection into worship. When you feel gratitude stirring, let it become action. Sometimes gratitude looks like quiet prayer. Other times it looks like small, deliberate kindness that keeps the flow of grace moving. If this message has met you where silence lived, then let it travel through you. When you imagine it as lighting a lantern on a foggy road, your small flame guiding others who are searching for light. Every heart that pauses here carries a spark that can guide another. And if your heart tells you to share, think of it as passing a torch. The light doesn't lessen in your hands, it multiplies. Somewhere, someone is still asleep, waiting for this same sound to stir their spirit. Your share becomes the knock on their door, the echo of mercy in their midnight. Should you feel peace about it, subscribe as an act of planting a tree beside still waters. You are choosing to stay near the source that refreshes you. Each new message becomes like rain to the roots, and over time, you will see fruit quiet, consistent growth fed by faithfulness. And if your soul ever feels moved to donate, let it be like pouring oil into the lamp that never stops burning. It's not payment, it's participation. It's how one light helps another stay alive. You're not giving away, you're passing forward. Your gift becomes part of a living circle, sustaining the flow of words that have sustained you. But remember, this is never demanded, it's offered. Every act of support should come from peace, never pressure. God's kingdom does not need force, it needs willingness. The purest offerings are the ones whispered between your heart and His. What matters most is that you carry this message deeper than the screen, that you let it shape the way you see, love, and listen. If you never give a thing but carry the truth forward in your life, heaven still rejoices. For those who do give, may your seed return to you as peace. For those who share, may your echo become someone else's awakening. For those who stay and keep listening, may your faith grow roots that weather every storm. Every action born from sincerity becomes part of the story God is writing through this space. Each like becomes light, each share a ripple, each gift a breath of continuation. It's all worship when done in love. And if all you do today is breathe and whisper a quiet thank you, know that it is enough. Heaven hears the heart behind every gesture. The world needs what you carry, the steady warmth, the faith that listens, the kindness that gives without calculation. This is how we become the continuation of grace itself. So let your response be simple, peaceful, and free. Like as a spark, share as a bridge, subscribe as a root, give as a prayer, do only what feels right, and trust that heaven counts even the smallest act done in love. Grace has already found you. Now let it flow through you. Every flame you tend adds warmth to another life. When you give, share, or simply stay, you become a living channel of mercy. Heaven's light doesn't just shine to you, it shines through you, turning ordinary moments into acts of quiet ministry. Keep walking with open hands. Every gesture of love is a prayer that never fades. The path ahead is lit by what you've already released: hope, kindness, faith. What you give freely returns multiplied, not as wealth, but as peace that anchors your spirit in every season. There is a quiet truth that few ever grasp until they've walked through enough silence. Ignoring the divine voice doesn't make it disappear. It only dims your awareness of it. The call of heaven is not silenced by your hesitation. It simply waits in stillness, echoing faintly beneath the noise of your days. You can postpone obedience, but you cannot erase the word that has already been spoken over you. You have felt the weight of that truth before. The quiet ache that lingers after disobedience is not punishment, it is distance. And distance is costly. It dulls discernment, steals confidence, and replaces divine clarity with constant uncertainty. That's how heaven disciplines, not by removing love, but by removing the ease of living without it. The Apostle Paul testifies in his letter to the Romans, chapter 11, verse 29. For God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. That single truth changes everything. The call on your life doesn't expire because you hesitated. God's gifts are not recallable like fragile promises. They are permanent imprints of purpose. You can ignore them, run from them, bury them beneath busyness or fear, but they remain. They will find you again, like sunlight through cracks, like a melody that never quite fades from your memory. Ignoring divine direction doesn't end the story. It prolongs the lesson. The longer you resist, the louder the consequences become, not out of cruelty, but because heaven refuses to let you settle for lesser things. The same love that comforts you also corrects you. The same grace that forgives you also insists that you grow. Sometimes the silence after disobedience feels unbearable. You pray, but the air feels heavy. You read, but the words stay flat. Yet even in that silence, God is not absent. He's recalibrating your hearing. He's teaching you to distinguish between his stillness and his absence. Because there's a difference, he has never gone. He is simply waiting for your willingness to return. When you ignore the divine voice long enough, the world fills the void. You start confusing distraction for peace, approval for confirmation. But heaven never stops speaking. It simply speaks in ways that require stillness to hear. God does not compete with noise. He withdraws from it. That's why your heart starts to ache when you wander too far. The ache is your reminder that his presence is home. You might think the opportunities you missed are gone forever. But the truth is, divine timing bends toward restoration. The path may change, but the destination remains. Even when you detour, grace redraws the map. God doesn't rewrite your story to erase your mistakes. He weaves them into the plot until they lead you back to him. There's something sacred about regret when it's brought into the light. It stops being a wound and becomes wisdom. Heaven never wastes remorse. It turns it into direction. The tears you've shed over missed chances are not signs of failure, they're proof of conviction. Conviction means the Spirit still speaks to you. And if he's still speaking, you're not too late. To ignore God's voice repeatedly is to trade peace for pressure. You start carrying decisions alone, trying to fill the silence with reasoning. But reason has limits. Revelation does not. When you return to obedience, then the pressure lifts not because circumstances change, but because authority does. You were never meant to carry what heaven designed to lead. The danger of continual resistance is subtle. It doesn't always look like rebellion, it often looks like routine. You can be busy and still disobedient, active yet spiritually asleep. That's why the Spirit interrupts your comfort with conviction. It's His mercy keeping you from mistaking movement for progress. Even now, if your heart feels the familiar tug, the quiet comeback that words can barely describe, don't ignore it. That is grace making one final knock before it becomes silence again. God will never force your obedience, but He will never stop desiring it. The good news is this: even after seasons of avoidance, restoration can happen in an instant. One whisper of surrender can rebuild what delay destroyed. That's the power of irrevocable calling. It survives distance, delay, and denial. So reflect for a moment. The weight you feel is not condemnation, it's invitation. The silence was never meant to be permanent. It was designed to remind you how precious His presence truly is. Every time you return, heaven celebrates as if you never left. That is what mercy does. It rewrites endings. The same God who called you before your failures is calling you after them, unchanged, unwavering, unstoppable. Listen again. The voice you once ignored still sounds like love. When you pause long enough to listen, silence becomes sanctuary again. The voice you feared was gone begins to whisper softly, proving it never truly left, it simply waited for your return. Every yes spoken after disobedience carries double strength. What once was broken now becomes bridge. What delayed now redeems time. There is a door before you now, one that was closed before. But somehow it feels unlocked tonight. You can sense it in your spirit. Grace is no longer just calling you. It's waiting to welcome you in. This is not the same invitation as before. This is the door of redemption. It doesn't demand perfection. It offers restoration. The God who spoke twice now opens His hands, saying, "Come home, and bring nothing but your yes." You may have thought that too much time has passed, that your detours disqualified you. But heaven never closes the door on the willing. The moment you turn your face toward Him again, mercy begins to move like wind through open gates. You don't need to knock. Your name itself is the key. The ancient record in Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 19 proclaims, "I have set before you life and death, blessings and cursed. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." This is the choice that stands before you, not between right and wrong, but between returning and remaining lost. Redemption has never been about rules. It has always been about relationship. God isn't asking for explanation. He's asking for exchange, your shame for His peace, your exhaustion for His strength, your guilt for His grace. Redemption is not a one-time event. It's a constant invitation. Every morning you wake up breathing is proof that mercy still has business with you. You haven't missed your moment. Your moment is waiting for your return. When God opens the door of redemption, He doesn't ask where you've been. He asks where you're going. He doesn't count your failures. He counts your steps back home. Heaven is far more interested in direction than distance. The door stands open because blood once opened it. You can't lock what Christ already unlocked. The hinge of that door is love, unconditional, unrelenting, unbreakable. Every time you run away, it swings back wider, not because of who you are, but because of who He is. You may not feel ready. You may still carry regret, disappointment, or doubt. But redemption does not wait for readiness, it creates it. The moment you take one step toward grace, grace runs 10 steps toward you. The prodigal never made it all the way back. Love met him halfway. That's what this door represents, a halfway miracle that turns wanderers into worshipers. There is no shadow too dark for this light to enter, no scar too deep for this healing to reach. Redemption doesn't erase the past, it transforms it. It takes every failure and writes forgiven across it in heaven's ink. This door leads to rest. Real rest, not the kind found in sleep, but the kind found in surrender. You've been tired from trying to fix what only grace can restore. The handle has been in your hand the entire time. All that's left is to turn it. When you step through this door, shame falls away like dust in sunlight. You realize it was never about being clean enough, it was about being willing enough. Heaven has already prepared the table. All that's left is your seat. And when you sit again at the table of mercy, everything that once felt wasted begins to make sense. The heartbreak, the delay, the tears, they become ingredients in redemption's recipe. What once was bitter becomes sweet when grace stirs it. This door does not stay open forever, but it is open now, not to frighten you, but to remind you that divine timing is sacred. There is a season for warning and a season for welcoming. Right now, the door whispers, "Welcome home." To mark this moment, there is a number heaven has been echoing for those stepping through redemption. It is 888, a symbol of new beginnings, resurrection, and eternal promise. When you write it, you are not typing digits. You are opening your spirit to renewal. Each 8 curves like eternity folded into itself, one for the past forgiven, one for the present restored, and one for the future redeemed. So, if this word resonates with your soul, and you know you're standing at that sacred door, comment Onorito 8 below. Not as ritual, but as remembrance. You are saying, I choose life, I choose return, I choose to walk through the door that mercy has opened for me. The door of redemption stands before you, open, shining, waiting. Don't linger in the hallway of hesitation any longer. Step through. When you type 888, you are not sending numbers, you are unlocking alignment. Each curve symbolizes eternity folding over your life. One layer of grace wrapping around another, sealing what God has restored. Writing 888 is your spirit whispering, I'm ready for resurrection. It's heaven's code for new beginnings. Marking the moment your heart chooses life over loss, purpose over hesitation. Every 888 is a door creaking wider in the unseen, a silent declaration that redemption has won. You are no longer returning, you are home. There comes a point in every chosen life when redemption is no longer just an idea. It becomes a weapon. You begin to see that every scar carries authority. Every healed wound carries wisdom. What once broke you now bows before you. The very pain that tried to silence you becomes the proof that heaven's power has always been stronger than your circumstances. This is the warrior's awakening. You are not the same person who hesitated at the first call. Something fierce has awakened in you, not pride, not arrogance, but a holy boldness that only grace can create. It is the quiet confidence of someone who has seen God's mercy up close and knows it never fails. You've walked through valleys and come out with fire in your eyes. That's what happens when heaven trains a heart. It turns vulnerability into vision. We read in the writings of King David in Psalm 25. Verse 4, show me your ways. Lord, teach me your paths. That's the prayer of the awakened warrior, not make my way easy, but teach me yours. You've learned that following God's path doesn't promise comfort, it promises clarity. Each step forward may stretch you, but it never breaks you. The journey is no longer about survival, it's about surrender that strengthens. Every warrior in the kingdom fights two battles, one in the world and one within. The outer battles are visible obstacles, rejection, misunderstanding. But the inner war is quieter and far more dangerous. It's the war against doubt, against self-condemnation, against the temptation to forget who you are. The greatest fight is to remain aligned when everything around you invites distraction. You felt that war before, the tug between peace and pressure, the moments when obedience felt like risk and silence felt like safety. Yet every time you chose to trust, heaven armed you a little more. Obedience became your armor and humility became your shield. You are learning now that not every storm comes to destroy, some come to train. God allowed certain battles to reveal your endurance, not to question it. He never wastes conflict. Each struggle forged the strength you are beginning to recognize. What used to break you now bows beneath your persistence. The awakening of the warrior is not loud, it's steady. It's the shift from fear to faith, from reacting to responding, from asking why me to declaring use me. When you reach that point, you realize the fight was never against flesh and blood, it was always about protecting purpose. Your past pain becomes spiritual muscle memory. You remember what it felt like to be lost, so you fight harder to stay found. You remember the silence of disobedience, so you cling to the sound of divine direction. You remember the ache of almost giving up, so now you speak life into others who feel like quitting. That's what warriors do. They turn pain into mentorship, scars into maps. You no longer hide your past. You hold it up as proof that grace works. Heaven doesn't train warriors in comfort, it trains them in confrontation with themselves, with fear, with anything that dares to oppose what's divine. The awakening is not just awareness, it's activation. You start to move differently. You speak with more purpose, love with more patience, and stand with more conviction. The world notices the glow, but only heaven knows the battles behind it. The warrior's journey is not about seeking conflict, but carrying peace into it. Every time you choose forgiveness over revenge, patience over panic, faith over fear, you win. You disarm darkness without raising your voice. The authority you now walk in is not borrowed, it's forged through obedience. You no longer pray small prayers. You've learned to ask not for easy paths, but for strong feet. You no longer beg for open doors. You stand ready to walk through them when they appear. You no longer fear loss, because you've met the God who restores. This is the strength of a redeemed soul. It no longer chases validation, it carries revelation. The approval you once craved from people is now replaced by confidence in purpose. You understand that being chosen isn't about standing above others, it's about standing for others. And so, you rise quietly each morning knowing that every breath is borrowed strength. The sword in your hand is truth. The shield on your arm is faith, and the armor you wear is grace. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from it. The battle ahead won't always be easy, but it will always be holy. You've already survived what was meant to destroy you. Now you're equipped to lead others through it. That is what awakening does. It turns survivors into soldiers, soldiers into servants, and servants into stewards of light. You are no longer running from darkness, you are carrying fire into it. Every sunrise now feels like a summons. Every breath a reminder that purpose is still unfolding. You no longer wait for courage, you walk with it. The battle no longer defines you, it refines you into living proof that grace always wins. When obedience finally takes root, it changes the texture of your entire being. You begin to understand that what God wanted was never perfection. It was participation. Every act of surrender becomes a mark of belonging, an invisible seal upon your spirit that says, This one listens. This is the mark of obedience, not a sign worn outwardly, but an imprint burned deeply within. You don't always recognize when it first appears. It begins subtly through small moments of alignment, quiet decisions made in stillness, unseen choices to stay faithful when no one is watching. Heaven takes notice of those unseen yeses. They become the currency of kingdom trust. God measures greatness not by loud declarations, but by consistent obedience and silence. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus when chapter 19, verse 5. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, you will be my treasured possession out of all nations. That verse reveals something sacred. Obedience is not about control, it's about communion. When you obey, you enter the rhythm of heaven's heartbeat. You stop living by reaction and start living by revelation. You begin to walk, not because you know the destination, but because you trust the direction. This mark does not come through ceremony or status, it comes through surrender. Every moment you say yes when fear says wait, the mark deepens. It's not visible to the world, but heaven recognizes it instantly. Angels respond to it. Darkness fears it. The obedient carry a fragrance that cannot be faked, a scent of steadfastness that follows them wherever they go. Obedience, once difficult, becomes your instinct. It stops feeling like restriction and starts feeling like rhythm. You realize that every command from God was not a cage, but a compass. What used to feel like limitation now feels like liberation. Because you have discovered the truth, God's boundaries are built for your becoming. You can sense it, the atmosphere around you shifts when your will aligns with His. What once felt impossible begins to unfold with ease. Opportunities that resisted you before now recognize you. That's what the mark does, it grants access where striving once failed. But this mark doesn't just open doors, it also draws opposition. Obedience always attracts attention, both divine and dark. When you begin to walk in alignment, the enemy notices it. You will feel the pull of old habits, the whisper of doubt, the temptation to question what you already know. Yet each test only polishes the mark further. The more resistance you endure, the more radiant your obedience becomes. The marked ones move differently. They speak with humility, act with clarity, and love without calculation. They are no longer driven by impulse, but by instruction. They have learned that divine timing is better than human control. Every pause, every detour, every delay is now seen not as punishment, but as protection. Your heart, once restless, is now anchored. You've learned to trust that the same God who called you knows how to guide you. You no longer need constant confirmation because obedience itself has become your confidence. Each step forward is both offering and answer. And yet this mark is not given to the proud. It is reserved for those who have learned to kneel. True obedience is born in humility. It is saying yes not because you understand, but because you believe. It's giving up the need to control outcomes, trusting that God's unseen hand writes better stories than your plans ever could. Sometimes obedience will isolate you. Not everyone will understand your decisions, your peace, your silence. But solitude often surrounds those heaven trusts most. The mark of obedience glows brightest in hidden places. It doesn't seek validation. It seeks only to please the one who sees in secret. This mark is not a brand of superiority. It is a badge of surrender. It's a sign that your heart has been trained to respond even when your mind doubts. You have become fluent in the language of yes. As you continue forward, you'll begin to see the evidence of this transformation in everything you touch. Relationships shift, doors open, creativity blooms, peace settles. You realize obedience didn't take something from you, it gave something to you, the assurance that you are known, chosen, and trusted. And when heaven looks at you now, it doesn't just see survival, it sees submission that has matured into strength. The mark of obedience has become your spiritual fingerprint, unique, radiant, and unerasable. Carry it with quiet confidence. The world may not see it, but heaven does, and that is enough. The mark within you glows brightest in silence. It speaks where words cannot, testifying that your heart belongs fully to divine instruction. It is the unseen crown of those who learn to listen first and speak later. Every act of obedience writes history in heaven's ink. You no longer chase outcomes, you become evidence. The light in you no longer flickers, it burns steady, sustained by surrender. You are marked, not by struggle, but by steadfast faith. The echo of heaven doesn't fade, it deepens. The same words that once came as warning now return as wisdom. You look back and realize every repetition was shaping you, every pause refining you, every silence strengthening you. This is the prophetic echo, the sound of destiny repeating itself until you finally recognize the voice as your own calling answered. The words God spoke over your life didn't just visit once. They built a home inside you. That's why they keep returning, not to haunt, but to harmonize. The echo you hear now isn't a demand, it's an invitation to alignment. Heaven isn't shouting, it's singing in your frequency, reminding you that obedience creates melody out of mystery. The prophet Isaiah wrote, chapter 55, verse 11, "So is my word that goes out from my mouth, it will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it." That verse explains the rhythm you've been living. God's word never fades into silence. It circles until it fulfills its purpose. Every repeated message, every familiar stirring, every returning dream, it's the word coming home, carrying fruit from its journey. You are now walking in the resonance of promises once spoken over you. You've become an echo bearer, a vessel that amplifies divine sound into a noisy world. And with that, heaven asks only one thing: keep the sound alive. When the voice of truth meets a willing heart, it doesn't stop, it multiplies. The echo becomes a river flowing through voices, moments, and souls. So as this word touches you, let it move through you. When you like, imagine it as placing a small stone into still water. The ripple stretches far beyond what you see, reaching hearts you may never meet. Your simple tap becomes movement, spreading grace in quiet circles. If you feel stirred to share, picture it as opening a window at dawn. The light you've received drifts outward, finding others still sitting in darkness. Each share is like releasing sunlight into unseen rooms, gentle, golden, transforming. And when your heart leads you to comment, let your words be a seed in sacred soil. Write not out of habit, but out of harmony. Each phrase you leave behind becomes a tiny echo of faith, whispering to the next traveler, "You're not alone." To subscribe is to build a nest in the tree of grace. It's your way of saying, "I want to stay where the sound of truth dwells." Each time new words arrive, they land softly where your spirit is already waiting. And for those who feel the quiet nudge to donate, let it never feel like duty. Think of it instead as pouring water into a flowing stream. You are not losing anything, you're joining the current. Your giving keeps the current alive, helping this echo of light find every desert soul that thirsts for meaning. But remember, these are not commands, they are invitations. You are free to let your heart decide how to respond. The truest offerings rise not from pressure, but from peace. If you do nothing but listen with sincerity, heaven counts it as worship. Each action, each like, each share, each word, Each seed of generosity is another echo returning upward. They form a chorus, a living sound of gratitude reverberating between earth and eternity. And if all you can give today is attention, then give it fully. Let the message wash over you like rain. Let it rest, let it root, because even your stillness, when offered with openness, becomes part of heaven's song. You've come a long way from the first whisper. You now carry the frequency of faith itself. You have learned that divine echoes never fade. They only grow deeper with every obedient heart that repeats them. So, wherever you are right now, whether silent, moved, or simply reflective, know that heaven hears your heartbeat as agreement. You are part of the resonance of redemption. You are one of the voices that keeps light moving, like as a ripple. Share as sunrise, comment as a seed, subscribe as shelter, and give as flowing water. Let every act remain pure, effortless, and filled with peace. For in the echo of obedience, even the quietest sound can move mountains. Every echo that leaves your spirit becomes a bridge of light. It travels farther than sight, carrying fragments of hope into unseen corners. What begins as a whisper here might return elsewhere as someone's answered prayer. Heaven wastes no sound born from sincerity. Let your actions sing softly. The world doesn't need louder noise, it needs deeper truth. Each gentle ripple you release reshapes an atmosphere, turning chaos into calm, confusion into clarity. What you do in stillness resounds through eternity's corridors. And as your heart stays open, remember every echo is eternal. Your kindness, your listening, your giving, they live beyond you. The light they carry becomes a hymn. Heaven never stops replaying. You are part of that holy sound. There is a peace that only arrives after obedience, a peace not built on circumstance, but on surrender. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It settles, like morning fog resting on quiet waters. You feel it not as excitement, but as stillness that hums with purpose. This is the peace of completion. It's not the end, it's the exhale after endurance. You have walked a long road to reach this calm. The rest you feel now isn't the absence of struggle, it's the presence of understanding. You've stopped demanding answers and started trusting alignment. You've learned that not every silence is distance. Some silences are sacred. They are heaven's way of saying, you are safe now. You've done enough for this season. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 7. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This peace isn't logic, it's language. It speaks in whispers that logic can't interpret. You don't earn it, you enter it. The same storms that once terrified you now serve as proof of what you've overcome. Where there was once panic, there's perspective. You've learned that storms don't come to destroy, they come to define. You're beginning to notice how quiet confidence replaces anxiety. You no longer rush to fix everything because you've realized that peace often moves slower than panic but accomplishes more. You no longer measure your worth by progress. You measure it by presence. This peace doesn't remove your emotions. It refines them. You still feel deeply, but you no longer drown in what you feel. You've learned how to let emotions pass through without letting them take root. That's the maturity peace brings. It doesn't erase humanity. It redeems it. The world might look the same around you, but something fundamental within you has changed. You respond differently. You breathe differently. You no longer carry urgency in your chest, you carry assurance. This assurance is quiet power. It doesn't need to shout because it knows who sent it. Peace, at its purest, is authority resting. It's the moment when faith no longer wrestles but reclines. The fight is not gone, it's simply been won internally before it ever reaches the external. You can feel that shift now. You're not fighting for peace anymore. You're fighting from it. You've noticed how differently you see others too. The empathy that once hurt now heals. You no longer take offense easily because peace has given you perspective. You understand that not everyone who hurts you means harm. Some people act from their own unhealed places. Peace teaches compassion, the kind that doesn't excuse behavior but understands brokenness. This is why you can bless those who walked away. You no longer need closure from people when you have clarity from God. Peace has become your closure. The need to explain yourself has faded because peace explains what words cannot. You've reached the part of your story where the inner storm no longer dictates the outer world. You carry calm like armor. You've discovered that true victory is not in proving your point but in protecting your peace. Sometimes, you'll still feel the tremor of old anxieties trying to return. That's normal. It's just your past knocking, checking to see if you've changed your address. But peace answers the door now, saying, "You no longer live here. You may not know what's next, but for the first time, you're not afraid of not knowing. You trust that what's meant for you will not miss you." That's not complacency, it's confidence in divine orchestration. This is the fruit of faith that's been tested and proven genuine. Peace doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. You act from rest instead of reaction. You wait without worry. You move without fear. The more you dwell in this peace, the more it becomes your atmosphere. Others begin to notice it too. They won't always understand it, but they'll feel it. Your calm will become contagious because peace is a presence, not a performance. You've learned the rarest of lessons: stillness is strength. Resting is not retreating, it's recharging. You've stopped trying to win battles that were never yours to fight and started tending the ground of your own soul. That's what heaven wanted all along, for you to understand that wholeness is worship. So, let this peace guard you, guide you, and ground you. You no longer need to chase what's already yours. The quiet inside you is not emptiness, it's evidence. Evidence that grace has done its work. Evidence that the war within has found resolution. And when you wake tomorrow, carrying that calm into the noise of the world, remember this peace is not fragile, it's forged. You didn't find it, it found you after you finally stopped running. You are no longer searching for serenity, you have become it. Every divine story has a moment of reflection, a pause between what has been spoken and what has yet to unfold. You are standing in that sacred pause now, looking back at all that has been revealed, from the first whisper of awakening to the peace that now surrounds you. Every word has carried you closer to understanding who you truly are, a living testimony of grace. This is not the end of your journey. It is the unveiling of what your obedience has built. You can finally see it now. The pattern that once felt chaotic has become a tapestry of mercy. Every delay that frustrated you, every silence that tested you, every repetition that refined you, all of it was God's art, drawing purpose through time. You are beginning to see how heaven's timing never missed. Even when you thought you were behind, you were being aligned. Even the detours had divine design. What once looked like lost time now feels like preparation perfectly planned. Heaven speaks again through the writings of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." You once read that verse as a promise for someone else, but now it reads like a mirror. You are the proof that this plan works, not because life has been easy, but because faith has been faithful. The plan was never to keep you comfortable. It was to keep you becoming. You understand now that being chosen was never about standing above others. It was about standing through what others could not. You have become endurance wrapped in grace. The fire you walked through did not consume you, it clarified you. You've emerged not flawless, but forged. There is a quiet strength that comes after surviving divine testing. It's not loud, not boastful, it's steady. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself because it's already proven. You now move through life with the calm authority of someone who knows heaven backs every step. Look at what's changed inside you. You used to ask, why me, but now you whisper, thank you for trusting me. You used to run from storms. Now you stand in them knowing peace has already claimed you. You used to seek signs of approval. Now you simply walk in assurance. This is what divine maturity looks like. It's not that the trials stop coming, it's that you stop breaking under them. You've learned that stability isn't found in control, but in surrender. What you once feared losing, you now freely lay down. That's freedom, the kind that cannot be taken because it was never built on circumstance. You've learned to love differently too, not out of need, but out of overflow. The compassion in your eyes now carries history. It's mercy in motion. You understand pain more deeply, which makes you hold others more gently. You've become a refuge for weary hearts without even realizing it. That's what happens when light spends time in darkness. It learns how to guide others out. Everything you've endured has shaped you into a vessel, one capable of carrying both truth and tenderness. You've learned to hold revelation without arrogance, to speak power without pride. The weight of wisdom now sits gracefully on your shoulders, because you've learned that strength isn't in shouting, it's in shining. You stand now at the edge of a new horizon. The same God who began your story is still writing it, pen steady, ink endless. What lies ahead will not repeat what's behind it, will reveal the reason for it. The purpose of every pain, every pause, every prayer will soon unfold in living color. But for now, simply breathe. Let gratitude settle where striving used to be. Let peace speak louder than pressure. You are no longer striving to find your calling, you are living it. The heavens have watched your journey, the trembling, the trusting, the transformation. Every time you almost gave up, grace stood behind you, whispering one more step. And now, that step has brought you here to this stillness, this sacred clarity, this deep knowing that nothing was wasted. You are ready for the next chapter, not because it will be easy, but because you have finally become who you were meant to be, steadfast, sensitive, surrendered. And when you walk forward from this moment, the world will not recognize the same person who once doubted, delayed, and feared. They will see light wrapped in flesh, purpose walking on 2 feet, heaven's echo made visible. You are not waiting for destiny anymore, you are living proof that it has already begun. You are the fulfillment of every whispered promise, the living continuation of mercy's story. What once was prophecy has now taken breath within you. Walk gently into tomorrow. The world will feel your peace before it hears your words. That is how heaven speaks through the chosen. And now, the journey pauses not because it's finished, but because you've stepped into the part where your life becomes the message. Every word you've heard, every stirring you felt, was heaven's way of preparing you for this moment where reflection turns into response. If this message has found you, if it has stirred something deep within, let it continue to move through you. When you think of it as lighting a small lantern on the path, a silent signal to heaven saying, I have received. When you share, imagine opening a window of light into another heart's darkness. You never know whose midnight will turn into morning because you chose to pass the flame forward. When you comment, write as though your words are footprints in soft soil. Let them carry traces of truth for the next traveler who wanders by. Sometimes one honest line can become another soul's turning point. If you feel peace about it, subscribe as building a resting place for revelation. You're saying this is a space where my heart can keep learning. It's how you stay near the sound that strengthens you. And for those who feel that quiet inner nudge to donate, let it be done gently, joyfully. Think of it as pouring water into a flowing river. The current doesn't stop with you, it travels, touching places your feet may never go. Your generosity keeps the message alive, keeps the light from dimming in the places that need it most. There's no demand here, no expectation, only invitation. Every act done with love becomes part of something larger than words. So let this not be goodbye, but continuation. Carry what you've received. Be the echo. Be the flame. Be the proof that light still travels through willing hearts.